Hey everyone, what's up? I thought I'd give my thoughts on the announcement last night. Pretty much it was rumored to be happening of the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match. And mostly, I also want to talk about the fact that we are not going to have one, not two, but three Hell in a Cell matches in one night. Now, let's start off with the three Hell in a Cell matches first, okay? Let's start off with those. Mostly the reason those are happening as they are is in storyline. It's about battle of the brands, okay? Raw wants to outdo SmackDown, right? So what better way to outdo SmackDown than to have a triple threat of their own, but in the form of a triple threat of Hell in a Cell matches. That's the reason you have three Hell in a Cell matches. It's a triple threat to show that, hey, not only can our pay-per-view one up SmackDown's pay-per-view, but we can do it in a way that'll get fans invested and will get them invested and will allow them to enjoy it. And in my opinion, doing a triple threat of Hell in a Cell matches, storyline-wise, I guess WWE feels is the best way to enhance this feud, this battle of the brands, if you will, between Raw and SmackDown. So that's the reason why we're getting a triple threat of Hell in the Cells. Some might say, well, you're oversaturating it, you're overdoing it, and it might be true. That might be the case, but I don't really think so. I think, honestly, it's not an oversaturation. It's basically being done because of the storyline of, the battle of the brands. That's basically about it. That's basically the reason it's happening. It's a battle of the brands issue. It's like, who can outdo who from a pay-per-view scale. So, we'll have to wait and see what happens, but yeah, that's the reason you're getting a triple threat of Hell in the Cell matches on October 30th. It's basically part of storyline, for one brand to outdo the other. That's basically the reason. Now, some might say, well, why do you really have to have Rollins and Owens in there? That right there, the reason you're having a Hell in the Cell there is to enhance the storyline between Triple H and Seth Rollins. You want to have it done in a way that incorporates that storyline and shows that maybe yes or no, Stephanie has had acknowledgement exists to help enhance said storyline between Triple H and Seth, and also as some people may not like to hear it, it will also attempt to answer the question: did Stephanie know or not know about her husband's involvement when it came to screwing Seth Rollins out of the Universal Championship? You see, that's why it's also being done. As far as Rusev and Reigns go, yeah, some people might say it's kind of ridiculous that their feud and their Hell in a Cell match, which is the climax of their feud, is happening due to the fact that, Reigns interrupted the wedding celebration of Lana and Rusev, and Lana got hit with a cake. So, one person might say that that's kind of like not a real reasoning to do the feud. And, they might be right. They have a point. But again, it's all about how it's done and how it's presented. That's basically about it. It's all about how it's done and how it's presented. Nothing more. Nothing more. That's why the Hell in a Cell match. Oh, sorry, my camera hit the mic. I'm trying to do something here. Hold on. But again, that's why the Hell in a Cell match is happening, because of that reasoning. Because of that reasoning, that's why the Hell in a Cell match is happening. So, yeah, it may seem like a ridiculous reason, but that's the reason. And also the fact that if you add in the fact that Rusev cost Reigns a shot at the Universal Championship, then, you add that to the equation. And you might say it has a reasoning that with some of those reasonings, I mean, again, what I'm trying to say is you might say that that's not enough reasoning, but in some cases it is. I mean, let's not forget, ever since this Hell in a Cell pay-per-view came to be, we've had several Hell in a Cell matches that just didn't make sense. Like, we've always scratched our heads and wondered why. Why was a Hell in a Cell match needed for this? Why was a Hell in a Cell match needed for that? We never really got an answer. But yet, here we are going to get an answer. So, that's why that's happening. I mean, basically, what I'm trying to say, and I'm not trying to ramble on here, what I'm trying to say is basically the reason Rusev and Reigns is getting the Hell in the Cell match is, even though as ridiculous as the build-up to it is, it does have some legit reasoning. And when one thinks about it, a Hell in the Cell match does, win or lose, does raise a superstar's stock in the company. It shows you basically how much a company thinks of you and values you, if you will, values you within that company, especially within that brand. And by putting Rusev, I mean, think about where Rusev was last year and earlier this year compared to now. Do you think, honestly, last year or even earlier this year, you would have thought Rusev would have been in a Hell in a Cell match? No, you wouldn't have. But yet, now here he is. He's in a Hell in a Cell match with Reigns. And by being in this match, it elevates Rusev in a way. It shows you how important they think of Rusev, to put him in this kind of a situation. Yeah, I agree. Does the storyline at times make sense for it to happen? Not really, but when you take into certain events, it does. So that's why it's happening. The same with Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins. You might think, oh, it's just to enhance the Triple H Seth Rollins feud. You're right, it is. It is to do that. But it shows you how much the company values Kevin Owens. Because remember, Seth has been in Hell in a Cell before. Heck, he took that nasty bump against Dean Ambrose last year. So, with him being in a second Hell in a Cell, it shows you how much they value him as a top guy, but it also shows you how much they value Kevin Owens. I agree, they don't have to make this a Hell in a Cell match, but they're doing it because of the fact that it enhances the storyline, furthers the storyline between Triple H and Seth, and like I said earlier, tries to answer the question of whether finally, yes or no, did Stephanie know about the whole, situation of Triple H screwing Seth? And at the same time, it elevates Kevin Owens even higher because it shows Kevin that the company values him very much to put him in such a unique matchup. A matchup that the legendary Undertaker and the legendary Shawn Michaels first competed in 1997. And those are two top guys in the Hall of Fame. Well, one guy in the Hall of Fame now, one guy on the way to the Hall of Fame, that, every time they competed in Hell in a Cell, mostly Undertaker would reinvent that cell match in a way that, we couldn't comprehend. Him and his opponent would find different ways to reinvent it. If you don't ask me, ask Shane McMahon. The point is, when you get put into a Hell in a Cell match, despite, the reasoning behind it, it shows you that the company values you in such a way that the Hell in a Cell match doesn't have to make any legitimate sense. And as to why it's happening, it's to show that they value you. It's to show that they value you, easy for me to say, in such a way that when you look back on your career, you could say, hey, at least I competed in Hell in a Cell matches. The most dangerous match imaginable. Or one of the most dangerous matches imaginable. That's why they're put into this scenario. As far as the women go, this is historic. Yes, they did steal the show. They tore the house down, if you will, last Monday night in Los Angeles. They tore it down. They main evented. They got the fans invested. The fans loved what they saw, and they wanted more. Well, they've done just that. They're giving the fans not only a rematch between these two, but they're allowing the women to make history by competing inside Hell in a Cell. Now, some people might say, okay, I think Deluxe Man, you said this even best, that WWE is going to try to talk to them not to, go totally crazy in the cell. To kind of, do it to a point that, yeah, they might get hurt and they might have to take a week off or two just to heal up. But don't go too over the top crazy. Well, guess what? WWE, you may say that to them by granting them this opportunity, but you're also saying it but you're also talking to, but here's the thing, you're talking to the wall, basically. You're talking to thin air, invisible space, if you will. Because, yeah, you can inform Charlotte, Ashley, if you will, I think that's her real name, and Sasha about competing, about not going crazy in this match. But you know what? They're going to go crazy. You could tell them to be careful and not to do so many dangerous spots. They're going to do them. It's like talking, what's that old saying? It's like talking to I can't even I can't even think of what this. Oh yeah, it's like talking to the wall, basically, when you try to explain that to them. They may nod and say, okay, no problem, and then they're going to go out and they're going to do the exact opposite. I guarantee it. And yeah, they might get flack for it when they go in the back. But they realize that this is an opportunity. They realize that this is an opportunity to raise their A game and to take that women's revolution to a whole new level. Because I had said this at one time, but I raised what I was going to say originally. But this basically is the first step in the women's revolution coming full circle. It's the first step in the women being on equal terms with the men. The reason I say that is because you're allowing them to compete in a Hell in a Cell match, which has never happened. Next stop, no doubt, will be a freaking ladder match, maybe a Money in the Bank ladder match, with the winner getting a shot at any time she wants at either the Raw Women's Championship or the SmackDown Women's Championship. Because you know that's going to happen. You know that since both shows are now their own brands, you know that the Money in the Bank pay-per-view may or may not still be. Now, if it's still around, it's going to be probably either a Raw or SmackDown exclusive, which is okay. But in my opinion, I think the Money in the Bank match is going to end up back at WrestleMania, and it's going to be an interpromotional one with whoever wins it getting a shot at their brand's women's championship at any time they want. So that's the next step. We've seen them compete in hardcore matches before, and that's thanks to people like Trish and Victoria and Lita. Cage match we give to Victoria and Lita as well, but we've seen them compete in these things before. And the point is, the women have done that. The women are now doing a Hell in a Cell. The women have main evented Raw twice. The most logical next step is a ladder match, if you will, is a ladder match for the championship. And then, if they still have it around, a freaking Elimination Chamber match. I mean, heck, they let you do a freaking Elimination Chamber match in the games. I think that's the next logical step. And then I think also, the more you build your roster, the more potential for it to come full circle for the women to have a Royal Rumble-like match, where the winner of that gets a shot at either the Raw or Women's Championship. And I do believe this is going to happen too. If they are dedicated to this women's revolution and going as far as to doing this now with the Hell in a Cell, with Charlotte and Sasha, like I said, it's the first step to many of what I've said, to many of the other opportunities that they're going to probably get. I think sooner or later, it might be sooner than we think, the women will main event WrestleMania. Hear me out. They'll main event WrestleMania only if the storyline leading into Mania for the men doesn't live up to its hype. If there's no potential really behind it, if the people aren't behind it and supporting it, then there's no doubt the women will main event. It'll be a first, but it will happen. And I guarantee you that if they're building towards a Bayley Sasha Raw Women's Championship match at WrestleMania, then if they don't have an interesting main event or an interesting feud or storyline for the men that would allow them to main event WrestleMania, and it being in Orlando, home of NXT, then I guarantee you the best solution, folks, to allow Bayley and Sasha to main event WrestleMania 33. You want this women's revolution to come full circle? You want to show that you're truly behind them? That's the best opportunity you got if you don't have a main event worthy match for the men to close out the show. It makes the best logical sense business-wise and, time-changing wise. It is the best. It makes the best sense. Okay? Because Sasha and Bayley have shown that not only can they main event a show when they main evented NXT TakeOver last year, but they could steal a freaking show. And they need to do it again. And like I said, if you don't have some kind of storyline for the men to close out the show at WrestleMania, then my suggestion is let the women do it. And the two most logical women, in my opinion, with all due respect to Becky Lynch, to all due respect to Naomi, to Alexa Bliss, to Carmella, to Nikki Bella, Asuka, you name it. Bayley and Sasha are the best choices, and even to Charlotte as well. With all due respect, Sasha and Bayley are the two best choices you got. So, like I said, those two will main event WrestleMania next year if there's nothing storyline-wise or program-wise that will allow the men to main event, that will get the people interested. It's going to come down to Bayley and Sasha. I guarantee you right now the people in Stamford, Connecticut are thinking about that as we speak. They're saying to themselves right now, okay, we want to do Sasha and Bayley at WrestleMania. It's in Orlando, home of NXT, but where do we put them on the card? And I guarantee you a lot of people who have suggested they do the Hell in a Cell match with the women between Sasha and Charlotte, they're going to say, you know what? In the best case scenario, let's put them in consideration, strong consideration for the main event to close out the show. That to me would bring the women's revolution completely full circle. Because now you're not only having a main event Raw, closing out Raw, not only do you have potentially main eventing and closing out Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, or WWE pay-per-view, but now you're having them you're now considering them closing out WrestleMania, your showcase of the Immortals. That shows you how far they would have come. So in my opinion, that first step to that happening next year, possibly, begins at Hell in a Cell with Sasha and Charlotte being in the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match, and possibly closing out the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view with that match. Sorry, my finger hit the mic. But that, in my opinion, is the best way to do it. And, honestly, I will agree, they need to close out Hell in a Cell with the Hell in a Cell women's match, with the women's Hell in a Cell match. Because not only is it historic due to the fact that it's the first women's Hell in a Cell match, but it would be historic for the first time women main eventing and closing out a pay-per-view. And you're in Boston, Massachusetts, Sasha's hometown. With all due respect to Kevin and Seth, you put them on last. Fans may like them, but they're going to boo that decision. Think about it this way. It'll be very similar to Rey Mysterio. Everybody still loved Rey Mysterio even after the Royal Rumble. But a couple of years ago, when he came out and Daniel Bryan did not, fans booed him. And it wasn't because they hated him. No, they weren't booing because they started to hate on Rey Mysterio. No, they booed WWE for not letting Daniel Bryan be a participant. And that's who they wanted. Instead, they booed the decision, oh, you chose Rey Mysterio over Daniel Bryan. Hey, it's not a boo or a hatred towards Rey. We love Rey. It's a boo and a hatred towards WWE because of not allowing Daniel Bryan in the match. And that's exactly the same reaction Seth and Kevin will get if they're put on last. Because it'll be like, wait a minute, this is Sasha's hometown, Boston, Massachusetts. She should have been the last one on. Boo! Hey, we're not booing Seth and Kevin. We love these guys, but boo WWE for making this decision. That's why they need to make the smart decision and put Charlotte and Sasha last on the card to close out the pay-per-view and make history twice in one moment. Make history twice in one moment and in the same night. By not only having the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match, but by having the first ever women, but also having the first ever WWE pay-per-view closed out by the women. Main evented and closed out by the women. They, like Mick Foley said last night, deserve it. They deserve that opportunity to not only be in women's Hell in a Cell, but to close out and main event a pay-per-view. And again, to me, this will be the first step in this women's revolution coming full circle. Because next year in Orlando, unless, like I said, WWE has a strong, and I mean strong, intriguing program and storyline for the men, on the men's side, for fans to get behind and invested in, that would close out WrestleMania, then I guarantee you, Bayley and Sasha, if that's what they're considering for WrestleMania next year, is going to be a strong consideration to make history by being the first ever women's championship match to main event and close out the showcase of the Immortals. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. I guarantee right now they are definitely strongly considering that right now in Stamford, Connecticut, as we speak, because this Hell in a Cell match between Charlotte and Sasha is the first step in that happening. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that's just my take on the triple threat of Hell in a Cell matches, and mostly on what the women's Hell in a Cell match could lead towards in the future. Let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like.